Hey folks, this is Paul talking about A Course in Miracles. Made a video recently about the Golden Rule that I personally found quite useful and clarifying, and so I thought I'd do another one that's along similar lines but in a different way. And the thing is that although it doesn't seem to be the case, there is a law that's in effect at all times, in all situations, where whatever I believe about someone else, I must believe it about myself. Whatever's true of them is true of me. If they're sinful, I have to be sinful. If they're guilty, I am guilty. Where everything applies to both myself and my brother. And so this idea that something can apply just to me or just to you is literally the ego. It is this idea of separation between cause and effect, this breakdown in equality and communication that makes it seem as though you can have something applied to another that doesn't apply to you. That you can point a finger and say, you're the one that's guilty and I'm not guilty, or you're the one who did something wrong and I didn't do it, so I'm not wrong. All of that is always surrounded with illusions and denials and unconsciousness that makes it seem as though it's possible that that's true, that somehow it's possible that someone else can be guilty while you're innocent, or someone else can be found to be condemned, and you doing the condemning as if you're not condemned as well. And this is the big lie of the world, of the ego thought system. This is the whole murderousness of the ego's thinking, that whenever you do something, it doesn't affect you, it only affects someone else. Whenever you think an attack thought about someone else, it doesn't affect you, it only hurts them. And this is why the ego thinks it can get away with murder. So what the Golden Rule says is simply that whatever applies, whatever's true, must be true of every child of God, must be the same equal validity for both. It's always a case of, it always applies to both of you. It always applies to me and the other people. So in the Golden Rule system, there's me and my brother, and either something applies to both of us or it doesn't apply to either of us. So it's a different kind of a way of thinking and perceiving, and it acknowledges our oneness. It acknowledges that we are on the same level, created by the same creator, that we're brothers, equal brothers in every way, identical, like identical twins. And when you lose sight of that and you start believing that there's a difference between yourself and others, there's something about you that they don't have, there's something about them that you don't have, you're special in some way, you've got something that you've denied them, that your self has something about it that isn't true of their self. Any way in which there's an inequality, it denies the fact that this Golden Rule is always applying, and you are always under its law, and whatever you do try to make apply to someone else only, except for yourself, separate from yourself, you actually do still apply it to yourself. Even if you're deluded in thinking, okay, that person definitely is the one that is guilty, they're definitely the one that did that and I didn't do it, you actually do not escape the consequences of that perceiving and that believing. You actually are condemning yourself, even if it seems that you're not, because now you're saying that person is where the sin is, out there, separate from me, disassociated from myself, and the sin is not in here. But all that means now is that your mind is split and having disassociation. Part of your mind is now thinking that it's holy and innocent, and another part of your mind is the place in your mind where you are putting the sin, so that you can sort of say, over here in this container there's my sin, and over here in this container there's my innocence. And you tend to put the sin out, away from the rest of you, making it seem as though it's someone else, or it's a separate self, it's a different identity that has the sin. It's not me, it's not part of me. And the belief that it's not part of you is the separation idea that is kind of driving a wedge in your mind, making you hate someone, really yourself, because ideas do not leave their source. So you've got, here's your mind, over here in the back of your mind you've sectioned off a piece of you, and you're thinking, I am the innocent one. And then in the front you've got this other piece of you that you're thinking is where the guilt and sin is. I think I just saw a little thing there. And the piece that is disassociated back here in this split mind, this innocent me, really perceives and doesn't believe that this other chunk is actually in one mind, that it is part of you. And so you think, okay, this is actually not part of me, so it must be an entirely separate self, it must be someone else. And it's like you don't even recognize that it literally is part of you. It's inside your mind. But the part of you that's sectioned off as this is myself is disassociated from the part that it's pointing a finger at. And now the part that it points a finger at is now perceived as an attacker, as the guilty one, the cause of it, and is making it be affected, all within your own mind. But because of that disassociation, you hallucinate this sense that that sinful person, who's not me, but really is in my mind, is not in my mind, because then you put up a different wall around the innocent part of you and section it off, and you think, I am only inside this part. The part that's outside of it, that is on the other side of the division, is not me. And so it's very, very easy. If you're having that disassociation, it's now very, very easy to, you're already perceiving that it seems like it's not you. You're already perceiving that it's sort of cut off from you somehow. It already seems like it's where the guilt is, and the guilt isn't back inside your other part of you. So it's almost the same thing as if it actually was a separate person who is where the guilt and sin is. And if you now bring along an actual other brother who walks in front of you and does something, and you're having this disassociated, I hate that person, it's really me hating myself thing, and you look through that at your brother, you will now project onto them or associate with them. You'll sort of bind your sinful part of your mind with them to try to make them connected, so that they now own or are the separate self that you think is not you. You take that separate part of yourself and you attach it to this other person and confuse it with them, and think that you're now accusing a brother, or that your brother is now the sinner, and you've put your sin onto him, and now you perceive it as if it is not part of yourself, so it must be his. It seems like it must be his, even though he is totally innocent. Nothing to do with this, is not even involved in why you're seeing sin. So you become confused that your stuff, your self-attack, this sectioned off piece of your mind that is really part of you, inside your mind, you believe that it is actually outside your mind and in someone else, and it's theirs. And the more that you believe in separation, the more that you disassociate, the more that you attack yourself and split your mind, the stronger the sensation will be that sectioned off piece of you that you hate is actually really separate from you, and that therefore it really seems to be someone else's, or a different self. It's not you. Now, as an example, years ago, there was a person that I hated and believed that this person was the cause of all kinds of problems. They seemed to be attacking me all the time. They were doing things to me, or they were causing upsets, or they were ignoring feelings, or whatever they were doing, that developed a lot of grievance and a lot of anger and hatred over time that seemed to be about this person and what they were doing. And what that did was it made me, in my mind, really separate off a piece of myself to put into them, to say, I really hate this thing, I really hate this not myself thing, and it seems to be in this person. And the more that hate increased, the more convinced I was that it belonged to someone else and it wasn't mine. It was all about them. I was justified in anger. It's proven that they're the one that did it, and all this stuff. And just having this perception in a split mind that I'm perfectly innocent and holy, and they're the one who is really sinful. Because that attacking, that hating, that anger, that condemning, always splits you and makes the gap increase and disassociates your mind and makes it seem more and more clear that you don't want to have anything to do with this person that really isn't the person. It's really a part of yourself. You don't want to have anything to do with this part of yourself. That you're actually hating yourself a lot, but you don't think that it's you that you're hating because of your disassociation. You now think that it actually is someone separate, someone outside of you, outside of this sectioned off piece of you that seems outside and seems like another person that's not yourself. And so I spent years hating, not thinking that I was hating myself at all, thinking that that person is the sworn enemy and the nemesis, and they're always doing things wrong, and not building up this case against them and developing this big weight of hatred and anger unexpressed. Because when you get that way, you actually want to stay hating and angry, because it allows you to scapegoat. It allows you to maintain the separation and keep your ego. So even if you're suffering, and even if you hate it, and even if you're saying that you wish it wouldn't be this way, you secretly want it to stay unresolved. You want to continue being at war with yourself, so you get the payoff of disowning your sin, of believing it. Then one day, confronted with this person, this idea suddenly came in. There they were, seeming to be the figure of hatred, cut off from them, not wanting to have anything to do with them, wanting to push them away, get rid of them, becomes murderous, trying to divorce from them, trying to separate from them, and really believing that you're not connected to them, you're not joined, you're not one. You want as much distance as possible between you and this part of you that you think is that other person. And all of a sudden had this idea that totally blew my mind, that I somehow was in that person. Somehow we are one. Somehow there's something in them that is actually part of myself. And it kind of bypassed this huge wall, this rift, the gap of separation, and it saw that because I'm in them, any attack that I was causing, projecting, condemning, I was doing it to myself, because now I'm inside them. So that means anything that I'm thinking about them, I'm actually doing it to me. Because the truth is, it had absolutely nothing to do with that person, really. It was me. It was my separated off me, and the rest of my separated off me, in my mind, having a war with itself, believing that this part of me was very hated, disassociated from it so much that I didn't even think it was me or about me, thought it was entirely a separate person that this was about, that it was all to do with this other brother, has nothing to do with them. It was me, this innocent part of me, attacking and condemning this other sinful part of me and trying to destroy it. And this is what the ego does. This is the split-mindedness. And as soon as this one part of my mind saw that there's something that it has in common with this other part of my mind that I thought was that person, but it really was me, nothing to do with them at all, just part of my own mind, this part realized that it was in this other part, and that the two parts were actually a part of the whole of myself. That these two things had a oneness, as if this me, this part of me, was one with this other part of me. And it was so shocking to see that, to suddenly see in your worst enemy yourself, that you're in them, really, that your mind is in that other part of your mind. And therefore, it's like, oh my God, I've been just freaking attacking myself. And it kind of like set up the stage for the beginning of a long healing process to not only heal my attitude about them, but to really heal my attitude about myself. And gradually, as I released those feelings and the hurt and the projecting and the unforgiveness and trying to blame and all this stuff, it gradually became apparent that the feelings of hate that I had, that I thought were about that person, the more that I allowed myself to feel them and release them, it became really obvious that they were actually about myself. They were aimed at myself. And the deeper I got into the healing, the more that became apparent that this was my self-hate. Some part of me was hating another part of me, seeming to be about this person, but nothing really to do with them at all. They're not even anything to do with it. It's just my attacking myself. So what I thought was me attacking a separate person was literally the whole time me attacking myself. And so had to heal that and forgive myself and become reunited within myself, to heal the split mind in myself, that these two parts, this enemy was really me. This enemy was just a split off part of me. Took some years to get through that, to the point now where interactions with that person are without attack and without blame and without grievance, and does not see them as an enemy, and has a much better relationship and can talk about normal things at a normal equal level, having got over that huge pile of hatred and anger. And so now it has become a holier relationship. And it's not just that the relationship with them is holier, it's that the relationship with myself is holier, because now I'm more whole because of the healing of that, what actually was self-hate that seemed to be hate of that person. So now as I relate to myself, I now relate to them, because I now don't hate myself in that way. I no longer hate them in that way. This is the golden rule that you have to realize, that whatever you think you're doing and getting away with, that you're accusing anyone else of, you actually are doing it inside your mind against yourself, against a split off piece of your own self. That all of your grievances and attacks and all of the conflict is with you against yourself. It's two parts of your own mind having a war, and it never has been about anyone else. This is the secret of salvation, that you are doing it to yourself. Everything you experience, every emotion, every reaction, every perception of attack, every hate, every anger, is all you versus yourself. That you've never suffered because of anyone else. No one else has ever really been the cause of your suffering. No one has ever really been the actual sinner, or the one who made the suffering, or the one who put it in you. If you don't put it in yourself, they cannot put it in you. And so this comes back to the idea that Jesus says, like, those, I don't know if this is the exact wording, but those who are sick do not love themselves, because if they loved themselves, they would heal themselves. So what that turns out to be is something I just realized recently is if I'm not loving myself, I must be unloving toward myself. I must be in some way having some amount of attack, some kind of hate, some kind of self-loathing, some desire to hurt myself. Literally, that if you're not 100% loving of yourself, as in the atonement, there must be somewhere in you that you have it out for yourself and you're trying to hurt yourself. and that you're actually trying to attack yourself and make yourself suffer because of the absence of love. That if you don't love yourself, you're going to have to be in a state of self-attack. And so when you do that and you attack yourself, that is mental illness, and it is self-attack, and you will cause yourself to suffer, and it will manifest sickness and disease and body sickness and eventually death. That you are the one who is choosing suicide to try to hurt yourself so much that you go towards death. And this is the simplest part of the teaching, that if you don't attack yourself, you cannot suffer. If you don't try to hurt yourself, you will not be hurt. If you don't try to make yourself disassociated from yourself and at war with yourself, you cannot be in a state of sickness. And therefore, you can choose not to be sick, you can choose not to die. Because when you're in love with yourself, you will only heal yourself, heal your body, heal your mind, and it can only produce health. Jesus says health begets health. When you are healthy-minded, you are loving, you are healing, and it creates an environment in which there is wholeness of mind and there is no attack. So therefore there are no effects of attack. There are no symptoms, there are no illusions, no manifestations of attack. You haven't caused attack. So you do not produce sickness, and you do not produce death of the body. And this is how you surmount death. This is the resurrection, and it's how you overcome the entire illusion of separation from life. And this is a central lesson in the Course in Miracles, that what you're doing it to you and only to you. So when it used to be to me that when it seemed like someone else did something to me and now I had to forgive them or do a forgiveness, it always starts out with the false perception that someone separate from you has done something to you. It's really a part of your own mind has done something to you. You've sort of associated it with some person or whatever, but it's really yourself. And then you do this forgiveness process to try to get back to the awareness that you did it to yourself, that they're let off the hook, they're innocent because they're not even involved, and you reunite these two parts of your mind. The attacker, the victimizer, and the victim are both inside you, and there is no such thing as an external victimizer. You do it to yourself. And then you get back to this position of forgiveness in which you realize that no one else has attacked you. You've forgiven yourself for the attack that you did on yourself. You've undone the consequences of your wrong decision with the Holy Spirit, and now you're back to a state of mind in which there is no attack. And you're whole-minded again, and you're healed. But what I'm seeing now is that that whole thing doesn't really start with another person doing something to you. It starts with you up here, those who would, how's it go? Those who would not forgive must judge to justify their failure to forgive. So you and the Holy Spirit looks from the beginning with forgiveness so as not to make errors, so as not to make attack, so as not to cause attack. He looks with a forgiving attitude that recognizes there's nothing to forgive because everything is already seen as innocent. Everything is recognized as innocent. And in that view, you have no sins. Your sins are forgiven. When you go out of that mindset, you go into attack. And you could say another word for attack is judgment. And so now that means not only have you tried to attack another, you have literally attacked yourself. So judgment isn't just about, oh, I'm judging people, I need to stop judging people, I need to stop judging the world and the planet. It's yourself. You need to stop judging yourself. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness. You're forgiving and undoing the split mind that you have to get your own mind back to the atonement. So what the whole attack situation really begins with is you being pure and holy and deciding to hurt yourself. That you originate attack. You actually are the one who initiates attack. You choose it. You're the one that does it to yourself. You are the source of this attack, and you attack yourself, which splits your mind, which hurts you, which creates a division in you, which causes a disassociation. You now have two pieces of mind. Now you've identified with one of them and you've disassociated from the other one. You've tried to put all of your innocence in this piece and all of your sin and guilt in this piece, and now they're having a war. And this piece is attacking this innocent victim within your own mind. And then you're getting further down the line. You're going to start to project and lay that on top of what you perceive, causing it to seem like the other part of you, the victimizer, is actually another person, or it's somehow you can't look at this other person without seeing through your own victimizer, causing you to see overlaid on top of them your victimizer, hated enemy self, which is yourself, seeming to be, you can't see your brother correctly. You cannot see his innocence or his Christ self because of your own self-attack and your own, this part of you that you haven't forgiven, that you've put this hatred onto. So then it seems like your brother becomes a scapegoat, and then you actually believe that you are scapegoating. You actually think that you are putting your sin onto another person, even though you're not. It's this split off part of you is putting the sin onto another part of yourself. And you are in your brother, so you think that this other separated me is now your separate brother, that your brother has now become a separate thing, isolated, where you can put the sin without you being affected by it. And then you think you're getting away with that, and that you're actually succeeding in separating yourself from your own self-attack and your own sin, and somehow finding other people guilty, as if that's working. And you can hate this person for a long, long time, thinking that you're actually doing it to them, that you're actually condemning them, blaming them, hating them, and all along they've got nothing to do with it. It's part of you attacking a part of yourself inside your mind, having a private world, pretending that you are seeing something outside of you that isn't outside of you. And so you don't ever really attack your brother, and you don't ever really need to forgive your brother, only in the sense that it's not like you've done something to them actually, because nothing real can be threatened. You cannot actually attack them. and it's not that you've done something to them and then that now you have to undo those effects and heal it and sort of repair the situation. It's that you never really did attack them. You attacked yourself. And it's you that needs the forgiveness. It's your mind that's split, that needs to be healed. It's the separated, projected part that you hate in yourself that you see as outside you, and this other part of you is attacking that other part and seeing it as an attacker. The persona and the shadow. The persona is this part of you where you put all the stuff you want to keep, all the stuff that makes you look good, all the stuff that you think is innocence and holy and harmless and guiltless and sinless and hasn't done anything wrong, and is people pleasing and is successful and is happy and blah blah blah, illusions of all this stuff. That's your persona, and that's what gets associated with the conscious mind and with who you think you are, as this split off part of yourself that is disassociated from this other part. And then the shadow is all this other stuff where you dump your shit. You put all of your self-hate and your self-attack and your condemnation and your sin and your guilt and your fear, and you dump it outside of your persona. You dump it into this other part of your mind that you think is separate from you, separate from the persona, and it's usually unconscious, because the persona is like trying to get rid of a part of you. It tries to attack you, to say this part of you is not lovable and we need to section it off and get rid of it, and that makes a disassociation, and it makes it unconscious and projects it. Denial and projection. And now you see it as outside of you, and you think it's in someone else, but it's really inside your mind. You're now having this conflict between two parts of your mind. The persona and the shadow are seeming to be at war with each other. So it all begins with you attacking yourself. And if you think that you can attack someone else without attacking yourself, you are delusional. If you think that you're getting away with murder, if you think that you can hate someone without you getting the effects of hate, if you think that you can condemn someone, trying to hurt them and make them suffer and make them sick, you will make yourself sick. This is one of the central lessons in the Course. Jesus says this is a central teaching, that what you try to do to others, you do to yourself. So whenever you use the body for attack, i.e. you're in the body seemingly and you attack through it, and you're trying to attack yourself through it, and you project through it as if you're attacking others. If you do that, thinking that the effects of that attack will only be outside of you, the effects actually won't only be outside of you, they'll be inside you only. Your brother will not receive the attack, you will receive the attack, because you actually are attacking yourself. If you use the body for attack, the body becomes sick and weak, and it suffers and it dies. Because if I'm trying to say, I'm attacking you and you're guilty and you're sinful and I hate you, that is going to hurt me. It is self-attack, and I actually am attacking myself, believing that I'm not, that I'm in denial, that I think somehow this isn't affecting me, and when you get really unconscious and really in denial, you can get into these angry states where you feel so righteous and so innocent and so justified that it's all about someone else and it's not about you at all. You're so pure, you're so holy. And that is such a state of denial, because if anyone else is being found guilty, you actually are finding yourself guilty in an unconscious way, and you are secretly hurting yourself and attacking yourself. So if you attack through the body and you use the body to judge and hate, unfortunately, the truth is you will not get away with it. You will not escape the consequences of your decision, because you are choosing to attack. You're believing in attack. You're making yourself hurt. You are literally doing it to yourself. Whenever you think you're doing it to someone else, you're doing it to you. And so even if you think that they're the one that's getting condemned, you are. And so you're going to suffer, and you're going to become sick, and your body was going to start showing up sick because your mind is sick, and your mind is essentially going to try killing off the body. And this is how you make death happen to yourself. No one dies without their own consent. You cannot die unless you choose to do so. This is the central teaching in the course. It's the dynamic of the golden rule. Whatever I try to do to someone else, I will do to myself. Always. It then becomes impossible for you to think that you can do something to another, assign something to be true of them that's not true of you, have them be the guilty one or the sinner, and you not be included in it. It's impossible. So that means if you attack yourself, thinking that you're attacking another in any way, you are attacking yourself. If you try to find someone guilty, you will find yourself guilty. If you try to hurt someone, you will hurt yourself. It's instant karma. And you are doing it to yourself. So you're implementing the effects of the attack. You are hurting yourself on purpose. So you've got to decide, do I want to hurt anymore? Do I really want to keep suffering and being sick and dying and being unhappy and having upset and emotional disturbance and being annoyed with people, and even a slight grievance is self-attack? Do I want to be at peace? Do I really want to be done with this war on myself? Do I want to be free of sickness forever? Do I want to never die ever again? If I so choose not to hurt myself, I cannot be hurt, because I'm the only one that does it to me. No one else is capable of causing you to suffer. No one else is responsible for your self-attack. No one's doing it to you. There are no causes in the world that bring oppression or make you weak or suffer or die or upset in any way. There is no cause of death other than yourself. There is no cause of sickness other than yourself. Sickness is a defense against the truth. If you are being sick, you are defending against the truth of you. You're trying to make yourself sick. You have chosen it. This is the central teaching. In A Course in Miracles, it's quite radical, because it means whatever I try to do to anyone else, I'm going to do it to me. I'm going to be included in the effects of my causing. Whatever I choose, I cause. Whatever I cause will produce effects, and whatever effects I produce as a result of my choosing, I will experience the effects, because I'm giving and receiving are one. Cause and effect are one. If I try to do something, I will experience it. If I try to attack, I will experience it. If I try to condemn someone, I will experience it. There's no escape, there's no loopholes. The golden rule is always in effect. This is the secret of salvation that you have to own, that you are 100% responsible for your choices and you don't have to die if you don't choose to. That you are the cause of all of your own suffering, all of your own sickness, and all of your own death. And that this is actually true. It's not a fiction. It's not just some magical thinking. It's not just some wishful thinking. It's not denial. It's not ignorance. This is the law of God that no one is exempt from. And it's in A Course in Miracles. It's the golden rule. So at some point, when you're in the midst of attacking others or judging or hating or arguing or whatever, thinking that you're doing something not to yourself, you're going to have to stop and think about this and think, somehow this condemning of my brother is actually hurting me. Somehow, each time that I am angry with people and argue with them, I'm hurting myself. Each time that I'm projecting and blaming and pointing a finger, finding someone guilty and sinful, I must believe that about myself. You but accuse your brother of your own sins. Would you accuse your brother of this? Because if you accuse him of it, you literally accuse yourself of it. And it's very humbling. It's very, it really makes you think deeply about what you're doing to yourself. Because if all the stuff that you thought you were doing to others, that you didn't think you were doing to you, all of your enemies, all the people that you hate and want to die, everyone that you don't like, all the people that do stuff that you don't approve of, all of the things that offend you, and the people and the politicians and the governments and the whatevers and the terrorists and the child abusers and the prisoners and all forms of crime and all this stuff, murderers and rapists and attackers, if you've got an issue with them, you have an issue with yourself. If you've got a gripe and a grievance against what seems to be these people, you don't actually have a grievance against these people. You have it against yourself. It's inside your mind, and you're doing it to yourself, and you will experience the effects of that grievance. It will make you unhappy. It will make you suffer, and you'll become sick. So you've got to decide, do I really want to be free of suffering forever? Do I want to be harmless toward myself? Why don't I love myself? Where is it in my life that I believe I am unworthy of love and I hate myself? Where is it in me that I have been ashamed and guilty, that I need to forgive myself? Where is it in me that I'm justified in attacking myself? Why do I not love myself? What is it that I think I did, that I think I sinned, that I really sinned and made harm against someone that I think was separate from me that wasn't, that I think I sinned against a separate person and I didn't? I sinned against myself. Why did I believe that I even did it? Why did I believe it even happened? In a dream that I made up, that I'm pretending it happened in, where nothing really happened, and I didn't sin, and I could not hurt God, and nothing real can be threatened. So why am I condemning myself to death and choosing suicide to try to make myself suffer just because I'm mistaken in thinking that I've attacked reality and that I've actually changed God and hurt a real being, which is impossible. 100% impossible. You can never really hurt your brother. You can never really hurt God, you can't hurt the Holy Spirit, and you really can't hurt yourself because you're real. But you can think, you can be in denial of that, and you can pretend to hurt yourself. And then this hurting of yourself, it is an illusion, it is a fake hurt, it is an artificial suffering. There isn't really any death. All sickness is really an illusion. There's no such thing as real sickness. But you confuse yourself with the body, and you attack the body illusion and try to turn the body into a state of suffering with you joined to it, so that you seem to experience suffering as if you are suffering. So you become deluded that not only are you capable of attacking yourself, that you can cause real effects in your real self and believe in the possibility that you can suffer, to make illusions that you are suffering, sensations and feelings and body symptoms that seem to prove that you are suffering, even though your real self isn't, and trying to pull off this stunt of trying to convince your brother that he's a sinner. Sick bodies are accusers. Brother, at your hand I die is this whole thing about, as you attack yourself and make yourself sick, you show a picture of crucifixion to your brother in the form of an image of a body that suffers, to try to teach him, as part of your attack and your projection, that he is the cause of your attack and the cause of your sickness. Brother, at your hand I die. It's because of you that I have these symptoms. Even though in truth it's because of yourself that you have put this sickness in you to try to condemn yourself. To this one part of your mind is condemning this other part of your mind, and you're trying to prove to this other part of your mind that it is the cause of your suffering, except that you're associating it with other people. And so now the part of you that's outside of you, seemingly, symbolically, the world, that the part of you inside of you, see, the body itself is actually a symbol of the persona. It's your person, it's your face, your image of your innocent self, born as an innocent baby. And everything outside of it is actually the rest of your mind, the rest of yourself, your unconscious. The world is the rest of your mind. And you're in here as this innocent victim, and outside of you is all of the attackers and the things that you blame and cause. And within this big dream that you're having, that this world is inside your mind, with you as a body self being attacked as a persona by the shadow of the world, the rest of the world, and these two parts are both inside your big universe-sized mind that's dreaming of this world and this body. So you can't really attack yourself. You cannot really attack a brother. Your brother cannot really attack you. Nothing real can be threatened. Their real self cannot be hurt. Your real self cannot be hurt. They are not the cause of you because they're not your father. They are not your creator, so they do not cause you at all. Both you and your brother are caused by God. You are the effect of God, and you are equal brothers, but you are not the cause of each other, so you cannot attack each other. You never have attacked anyone, and no one has ever attacked you. Not your real self. All of this other stuff is illusions of attack. But if you do try to attack yourself and separate yourself, you go into the separation, and now you have a dream of suffering and death, where it seems real, and it seems like you're actually having a really shitty time of it, and your body's breaking down, and there's sickness happening because of your self-attack. And that you haven't overcome death because you are still hurting yourself. You're still making death happen. And so when you get to resurrection, that's the point where you have decided to give up all attack against yourself. It's going to include your brother, because whatever you do to him, you do to yourself. Whatever you believe about yourself, you believe about him. If you are attacking yourself and hate yourself, you will hate other people. If you love yourself, you will love other people. And therefore, you have to always be included. You can't just love people sacrificially when you don't really love yourself. Or like self-sacrifice, for somebody that just does everything for everyone else and never thinks of themselves, but really kind of doesn't love themselves and puts themselves down and doesn't value themselves and doesn't include themselves, doesn't let themselves have anything. Everybody else gets all the good stuff. That's just sacrifice. It's not love. It's not equality. The golden rule, God wants all brothers to be loved equally. You deserve it. You deserve to be just as loved and receiving of love as everyone else. So as you go along here, you're going to start realizing, as I've been starting to see, that I thought I was getting away with not attacking myself when I was having attack towards others that I thought was not about me. I thought I actually could do so, that I actually can attack and be angry and fight with someone and have them be wrong without it affecting me at all. And it's not true. And you can even feel it in yourself. You come away from an argument, you feel shit, and you wish you had not become so angry, because you now feel hurt, and you've hurt yourself, and you feel guilty and sinful and ashamed and all this shit because of what you've done to yourself. So we've got to break out of that illusion that the ego has, that there's an inequality in the law whereby you can do something towards somebody that seems to be not yourself, either your mind or another brother, and get away with it without getting the effects. That the plans you make for your brother, you will receive the effects of those plans. And in all situations, if you are trying to be harmful, you are harming yourself. So the golden rule in its highest form, when you are obeying it and seeing sense and being sane, is that you're realizing that if I only be love, if I only love myself, i.e. don't hate myself, if I love myself, I cannot and will not attack anyone else, because if I do, I will attack myself. And so you have this kind of a built-in vested interest. This is what shared interests means in the Course, that you have this awareness of the golden rule, and you realize that what's in your best interest is in the best interest of your brother also, that it's for your best interests that you love, that you find him innocent. It's in your best interest that you don't find him sinful. It's in your best interest, because if you find him sinful, now you've hurt yourself. That you see your brother's innocence in order to see your own, that you see the loveliness and the harmlessness and the reality and the purity of his soul, so that you see your own, that you see both together. Healing is when two minds recognize their oneness and become glad. So you don't escape the consequences of whatever you choose. So if you're thinking it applies only to you, you are mistaken. And when you, at some point then, you got to realize, I can't do anything to anyone else without it hurting me. So now that means I can't really stay unconscious and keep on attacking, judging, making people guilty, trying to find them wrong, and so on, because if I do, I am going to suffer. I cannot get away with it. The golden rule is going to ensure that as a kind of a justice, it's going to be true of both of us, and I'm going to feel the effects somehow, on some level, even if it's outside my mind, or even if it's in my split off mind, or whatever. It is going to be part of me, and I am going to be the one that I am attacking, and it's not really anyone else at all. It's all about what you're doing to yourself. Your self-harm, your self-unforgiveness, your self-forgiveness, your self-attack, the secret of salvation. So you kind of have to realize that, and therefore be willing to give up harmful attitudes, give up grievances because they're against you, give up attack thoughts and hidden hates and secret sins that you thought were about others and were actually toward yourself. Your self-hatred and your self-hurt, and to just sort of realize that you don't want to hurt anymore. You don't want to hurt yourself anymore. You don't want to suffer. You don't want to be sick anymore. You don't want to die anymore. You want to be alive. You want to be happy. You want to be healthy. You want to be free of harm, therefore free of sickness and death. That if you don't hurt yourself, Jesus says in the Course, if you do not hurt yourself, you cannot be hurt. Maybe it's the other way around. You cannot be hurt unless you hurt yourself. See, this is telling you that you actually can have a total invulnerability and immortality if you don't hurt yourself. That you can get to resurrection, you can get to ascension, you can go to heaven, and you can have eternal life if you will just stop hurting yourself. This is what A Course in Miracles is about. It's about miracles take you back to the state of your perfection and your immortality. They restore you to life. Resurrection is literally raising the dead. It makes death impossible and gives you immortality. The body becomes a symbol of immortality. It no longer demonstrates sickness and suffering, and it cannot die, and the only way to get rid of it then is to make it disappear. That if you will stop hurting yourself and making yourself harmed, you don't have to suffer ever again. And the only way that you can do that is not to attack yourself, and don't think that you can attack your brother or that you are attacking your brother, because as soon as you do so, you are hurting yourself. And he's actually not being attacked at all. So only you get to suffer. Even when you have this horrible sworn enemy that you hate with a vengeance, you're the only one that's suffering. They could be totally happy. They might not give a shit. And here you are with all this rage and anger and hate and unhealed stuff that you think you're inflicting on them, and you're not. You're doing damage inside yourself, splitting your mind and believing in separation and attack and hurt. So this is the teaching in A Course in Miracles. It's the central lesson. The golden rule always applies. Therefore, whatever you try to do, you're going to do it to yourself. Therefore, the only sane thing to do is to love Because if you don't, you will hurt yourself. The only sane thing to do, teach only love, because that's what you are, is to love yourself fully, and then you'll automatically love everyone else fully, and you won't be able to find them sinful or guilty or the cause of your problems or anything. You will only be able to see their holiness and their innocence because you see yours. So it's pretty humbling to have to look inside yourself and examine, I think that I can attack these people, but when I do so, I must be hurting myself. And look inside and see. You can see and feel the hurt, the state of unlove, that you cannot stay in a state of love while you're attacking. You can't retain peace of mind while you're angry. You can't be happy when you're finding someone guilty, because it finds you guilty. Even if you don't realize it, it's like you think it's going out, but it actually goes in. You think you're getting rid of sin and guilt and stuff by sort of moving it away from yourself, but you don't. It doesn't actually leave your mind, and now you just emphasize it more, and it stays in you, and now it's just this festering pile of shit in your mind, making you suffer. So it's like, do you want to hurt yourself anymore? Do you really want to? This is where you can really start feeling forgiveness. You can really feel this sense of, I guess I don't want to hurt myself. I am willing to let go of this grievance about someone else because I don't want to keep hurting myself. And therefore I'm willing to let it all go and recognize that they're not guilty, because I want to feel and experience the peace of God, not being hurt, not being upset, not being stressed, not being harmed, not being sick, not having any kind of suffering or unhappiness. That heaven is a choice I must make, that if I want to go to heaven, I want to be in heaven and have a heavenly experience of total joy, life, health, happiness, empowerment, miraculousness, sanity, I have to just give up this fight, this war, this protest, this division, this separation in myself, and realize that I've been doing that to myself all these years, and I just don't want to do it anymore. I just want to be happy. I just want to be loved and loved. I want to love myself. And if you can accept yourself with love, you are accepting the atonement. This is why it's vital that you accept, this is your responsibility to accept the atonement for myself, so that you accept it for everyone, so that it applies to you and them, and so that you and your brother are now in a state of atonement together, where you are perceiving both of your innocence. That you cannot give them, you can only give the miracles that you have received. This is the same thing. It means that if I don't give myself miracles, if I don't heal myself and love myself and undo my own self-attack, I will not be able to give that portion of love to others, because I've denied it to myself and I don't have access to it. So if I will let myself receive God's love in recognition of the atonement, that I haven't sinned and I'm not guilty and I only deserve love, I will be able to actually believe that this applies to me, and it applies to everyone because of the golden rule, which is the law of mind. And now I will be willing to give that same love to others as miracles because I've let myself receive it. So if you want to be a miracle worker, you have to receive miracles first, and then you can give them and you extend them. This is why miracles can only be performed in love and not in fear. Because when you're in fear, you're in self-attack and you've threatened yourself. So you can't really be healing others because you've hurt yourself. You're an unhealed healer. Once you are healed, it's the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. And within this idea of forgiving others and being in a state of forgiving them, it actually means that you can undo their suffering. You can undo their sin by overlooking it. You can look past their wrong decisions and their self-attack and their self-hurt and not believe it, and therefore weaken their belief in it and help their mind to heal and give them love and shine love that heals, and that you can literally enlighten someone else with your love and your mind. The light in you can shine into another mind and enlighten it because you're lit by the same lamp. You're both sparks of God. And then you become a healer and you're a miracle worker. Extending the love of God, expressing love. So I'm going to stop there. Love yourself. God loves you. You deserve unconditional love. If there's any reason that you don't think you do, you need some healing because you've hurt yourself. So forgive yourself for what you haven't really done, and recognize the truth about you, that you are still innocent and you deserve God's love because nothing's happened. Get some atonement. Love you. Bye for now.